and then I'll hand it off to you whenever you're ready, Keith.
Okay, and just before, just thank you all for all of this. This is new territory and it's great to see everyone in person again. We'll get through the hiccups. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm calling this meeting to order at 8:42. My name is Keith Ofsted, and I'm the chair of the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture Public Art Committee. We're going to do a quick roll call to confirm committee members' attendance. While I call your name, please stay present. Commissioner Fritz Fried.
Present.
Wayne Holton. Present. Francisco Emme.
Present.
Commissioner Imani Robinson.
Present.
And Dr. Janice Rogers. We will now move to non-agenda public comment. Public was invited to submit public comment on agenda and non-agenda items via a web form accessible through the agenda and the commission's website. Members of the public may also join this meeting in person as webinar attendees. If members of the public have submitted comment in writing via the web form, staff will read aloud public comments submitted per city public comment protocol. I will call on Chuck to read aloud any non-agenda public comment or to call on any attendees who would like to provide comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Ofsted. No comment was submitted in writing. We have no virtual attendees and no in-person attendees. So back to you.
Thank you, Chuck. Well, welcome everyone to our return to in-person meetings. We greatly appreciate your understanding and flexibility with this transition. The full commission did not meet in February, so I have nothing to report regarding public art. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize a community member who has had to leave his post on the Public Art Committee for very good reason. Anthony Graham has relocated to the Bay Area to take up a senior curator position at the Berkeley Art Museum, Civic Film Archival. On behalf of the Commission and the Public Art Committee, a hearty congratulations to Anthony on his next step. Anthony has served on the Public Art Committee since the spring of 2019. And prior to that, as an art selection panelist for the Pacific Highlands Ranch Library Public Art Project. And in the fateful summer of 2020, took on the enormous task, along with fellow committee member Dr. Anjun Park, of serving as an artwork selection panelist for the San Diego Practice Collecting Initiative, reviewing and evaluating over 5,000 works of art for potential acquisition by the city of San Diego. Moreover, Anthony's thoughtful and constructive contributions to the work of the Public Art Committee have been invaluable these past years. We're happy for Anthony in a new position, but dearly sad to see him move on from San Diego. Chuck, will Anthony be joining us?
Looks like he's not in the attendees right now.
Okay. If he is able to join, we can pause and hear some comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
Okay. We're going to move on to the public committee meeting minutes from the January 6th meeting. I hope everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from the January 6th, 2023 meeting. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes as they are?
So
Thank you, Commissioner Friedman. Do we have a second? Thank you, Wayne Holton. We now have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding? Now we'll have to take a vote. I will call your name and you will respond out loud with yay, nay, or abstain. And remember that you do not need to have been present at the November meeting to vote or discuss. Commissioner Friedman.
Yay.
Wayne. Yay. Francisco. Yay. Mr. Robinson.
Yay.
Dr. Rogers. And my vote is a yay. Thank you all. Chuck, would you please read any public comment for this item that was submitted in writing and call on any attendees that would like to provide a comment for this item?
Thank you, Commissioner Ofsted. No comments submitted in writing and no attendees.
Thank you very much, Chuck. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the conflict of interest disclosures. The recommendation affects contracts with artists Ingram Ober and Marisol Random.
I'm sorry, if I might interrupt for just 1 second. The artists anticipate joining us at 9, so I might recommend that we, prior to today's action item, that we rearrange the schedule to start with the staff reports. until the artists are able to join in about 15 minutes.
Duly noted. Thank you, John. Okay. All right, so we'll go on the report. So I'd like to call on Christine Jones to provide the staff reports.
Isabel, can you move the slide?
Oh, yeah, that's me.
Okay.
Sorry, yep, I know.
Well, first of all, nice to see everybody in person. And so, actually, our separate first read today, but I first want to just remind everybody that the photo fellowship opportunity, so exposure, is that pilot fellowship where we'll be, the city will be seeking essentially an artist that works in a medium of photography, is also based here in San Diego County, to become the city's first photo fellow, and specifically for the city's Welcoming San Diego initiative. So just as a reminder that the initiative where we really put out a welcoming mat to basically support and uplift an immigrant refugee affected communities here in San Diego. So the photo fellow will be engaged in learning all about that, talking to an immigrant affairs office in the city and really incubating and research and carrying out a temporary project, and then there'll be photographic work, which you all will see as part of an acquisition at the end of the tenure of the photo fellow. So that opportunity is now open. So if you know any artists who might be good candidates, please encourage them to apply. The application deadline is April 5th, so there's still quite a bit of time. It is on our website, and all the information's there. Also, with Instagram posts and things like that. So if you want to repost, please, we encourage you to share with your networks as much as possible. And then I was going to ask Chuck to update us on the other procurement that's been happening and still in progress.
Thank you, Christine. Yes, as fate would have it, we have 3 2% for art projects to be included with capital improvement projects, in this case, all park projects that have all kind of aligned together. So we had 3 calls for requests for qualifications that hit the street this past November. Artists submitted by the holiday season, essentially, and we finally completed all of the paneling for that. So we have 3 artists selected whom I can't, because we're in the procurement phase right at the moment, I can't disclose who they are at this time. However, we do have 3 artists identified, and we'll be looking forward to sharing a lot more about that in the not too distant future once these artists are under contract. So those projects are Hidden Trails Park, which is a brand new park that will be in the Otay Mesa, Ocean View Hills area. Southwest Park, which will be in the Otay Mesa West Nestor neighborhood. Big improvements to the previously existing park, Willie Henderson Sports Complex in the Mountain View neighborhood. So, so we're excited to have 3 new projects come online, 3 new art projects to start working on. So, looking forward to giving you more updates on that. We still have a few minutes before Ingram and Marisol join us.
So I'll just update you, well, not related, I can share that we have a lot of our opportunities out right now. So we have some that are more grant oriented, but since you guys are here and you guys have networks of artists, I want to just reemphasize and share a little bit about that too. So we have kind of a regional collaborative that is kind of basically helped launch a grant opportunity for artists and local practitioners here in San Diego County and in Carroll County. And it's the California Creative Core Program called Clark South Border North. And that program is kind of an unprecedented opportunity for artists and local practitioners here. And they'll be essentially creating public campaigns to increase awareness of public health, climate, water, energy, social justice, civic engagement. So it's kind of it's really exciting. So they'll be receiving about $33,333. And they'll be incubating, there'll be mentor opportunities, sharing opportunities. It's a huge undertaking for us, along with Create That Catalyst, San Diego and San Diego counties, San Diego Foundation, as well as San Diego Regional Arts Coaching Coalition. They're all partners in this. So the opportunity is open through March 22nd for our round 1, which is direct funding to artists and cultural practitioners. So if you know any artists, there's, it's competitive, but we're looking for 60 artists, cultural practitioners. So that's great. That is kind of unprecedented. So if you know anybody, please share. Again, it's like on our website. There is a far.north.com website. So there is like a meeting, and of course, consider things like that. Please share. We wouldn't have right in in addition to that, something that just opened up is another opportunity called the Individual Artist Fellowship. And this opportunity is basically the California Art Council opportunity for artists. And the opportunity is regional. So the California Art Council identifies regions to basically help facilitate it within their areas. So Arts Orange County is the lead for the region that we, San Diego County, is part of. So they just released the opportunity. I think it's San Diego County, Imperial County, Orange County, San Bernardino, and Riverside. So artists from all those counties are eligible. And this is a fellowship that California Art Council has done before, where they created categories for artists to potentially apply for. And I don't know the terms, these are the terms that emerge in people in the career and in the legacy. So artists can apply for anywhere between 5,000 and 50,000, which is kind of the legacy. So it's a pretty exciting opportunity for, again, unrestricted funds. There's no, which is really unheard of. Unrestricted funds. So if you know any artists that you think might be good candidates for that opportunity is open through. I think it's April 14th. So help us spread the news about that too. So the program name? It's called Individual Artist Fellowship. And we have posted on our website. We've had it go out through email. It is being kind of facilitated or organized by Arts Orange County for our region. But artists from all those counties that I mentioned about. So nevertheless, there's many opportunities and unprecedented amount. So if you can help us back like that, that's what we're doing.
After the last couple of years of craziness and how it has affected our creative community, this is so bad that goosebumps when you first announced that, but this is amazing. So supporting our local working artists and making a local impact. I thank you, staff, for all of your hard work. We don't see everything that happens behind the scenes. We get to see the happy part, but we don't get to see all the rolling up their sleeves and really getting down and dirty, doing amazing work. That's just super exciting.
So we're excited, finally, be at a point where we have so many opportunities that like you can pick and choose.
So I have word that the artists they're just about ready to hop on. So we're moments away from getting started with them.
Maybe go on to.
Yeah.
Okay. Jump right in here. Okay. All right, cool. Okay, so thank you, Christine, for your report. Are there any other committee reports, committee member reports? If so, please type speak in the chat box and I will call you in order.
So I forgot to.
Yeah.
Miss that part.
Well, then, are there any reports in person? Good. You're forgiven, John.
Yeah.
Okay, and so do you not need to read public comment?
So yeah, I guess if there's any, we'll do the public comment after, if there's any committee member reports.
This is basically an opportunity for something you'd like to share with the group.
Yeah. Well, no pressure though.
Just bring up, I assume everybody knows, San Diego Tijuana have been selected as World Design Capital 2024. And I've been to some preliminary meetings, discussions and with different committee or different groups. as an architect, we just did a Zoom presentation by Carlos yesterday for the AIA. But is that something, I know Jonathan is kind of the spokesperson for the city in relation to the, all the opportunity programs. They're one of the 5, major participants. But is that something, this group could do, look at, create either an event or a document or an exhibition or something, as just part of that? Or is that more covered under the, the arts and culture, the commission, rather than necessarily our subgroup?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's iterative right now, so I think there's an opportunity. I think we just kind of have to see how things unfold over the 2 months as things are percolating.
Yeah.
But I think there's opportunity for us to see the things.
I mean, I just was thinking, yeah, either, I mean, I don't even know what public art, how much public art is out there. I mean, is there a book or a pamphlet or a guide or a digital, piece that could go out for visitors to, to go see or see specific ones? Or is there, could we call back artists that have done pieces in the past for some kind of a celebration or event, or, I don't know, just, or even a document, a book or a pamphlet or something, self-guided tours or areas of all the above. That would be, I think, interesting for locals and for people that are going to come here for other events.
There is an actual art tour that just happened last week. So, I'll definitely make sure we move on. So yes, I think it's just the same as you, to really be able to bring the art, connect the art.
Yeah.
Of the entire city.
Because, the focus they keep saying is design, but obviously art is part of that design. So,
My suggestion would be that we agendize it at a future meeting.
oh, okay.
And then go to
That sounds good.
Because right now there's not specifically a budget for it.
there's no idea for,
But that doesn't mean our business partners, our creators, and how do we have an Olympics in your city? You want some type of a legacy.
Right.
So whether it is murals, whether it is something that to remember that experience, I think would be impactful.
Yeah, no, I think it's a worthwhile task.
So I think we do. Sorry, comments, or yeah, sorry.
I'll make it quick. I serve on the board of VAPA, the Vision for K through 12 schools. And they are looking to start an advisory committee so that they make more connections with local institutions, especially art-based institutions. And so I was given the charge to community members to see if they were interested in joining this advisory group. I would say for your name your name came up, but I will maybe I can reach out to. Is that okay if I reach out to the committee and ask if they're interested in joining this advisory? Okay.
The police Prop 28, there's some really exciting news happening. Russ ended doing a presentation and then one of the last meetings, and this is and very specific about 80% going to staff. So hiring additional teachers, but also going to part-time to full-time. Because right now they're talking about this K-12 arts education program, and so my own personal experience and 20 years as a high school art teacher. What's nice about it is it also there's additional funding through an additional measure for building facilities, or if you don't have a dedicated hardware. And then also a small percentage of it is also for the consumables, so the paper and things like that. So it's huge. And there's still a lot of uncertainty because it passed, and it's very well written. It was written by an artist educator in LA, and they did some really good work. It doesn't have any additional taxes, it's all from the general fund. So it was really well thought out.
So I guess if we do for the record, just acknowledge any public comment for those items, and then we can begin with Ingram's presentation. So Ingram's in the meeting.
Are there Any?
No public comments submitted in writing, no public attendees, so we can move on with the next agenda item.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump back. Are they with us? Oh, they are. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with the conflict of interest disclosures. The recommendation affects contracts with artists Ingram Over and Marisol Redmond. Please assess whether you have any conflicts to disclose. When I call your name, if you have any, no conflicts, please state no conflicts. If you do have a conflict, please recuse yourself from the discussion and voting on the action item. Commissioner Friedman.
No comment.
Wayne Holden, no conflict. Francisco.
No comment.
Commissioner Robinson,
No comment.
Dr. Rogers. And I have no conflict.
Great, if I could just, so before we proceed, I'll just say really quickly that, so our system is a little ad hoc for these, for the virtual presentations. So this is to both Ingram and to the committee. When we get to after Ingram's presentation, when we get to any questions and answers, if the committee, so basically like Belle and I have to do a little mute unmute dance so that we don't get feedback. I will, so if the committee has questions, Ingram, I will signal to you when we're ready for a response. Does that make sense? And subsequently, when Ingram is finished and there's a follow-up question, I'll signal when it's fine to ask the question. So does that make sense?
Should we just raise our hand then if we have a question?
Sure.
We'll have a pause.
Yeah, I think that will work. So yeah, thanks everybody for bearing with us as we.
Should we use CB radio lingo?
Hybrid meeting thing once again. So with that, right, so I think I'll hand it over to Laura to introduce Ingram and yeah, and then we can, sorry.
Are you muted?
No, I think no, so Ingram can hear me through that microphone right now. So that should be fine. So I will I'll pull up the slides again real quick. So yeah, thanks again for bearing with us. All right. So we just have a couple introductory slides, Ingram, and then we'll unshare and hand it off to you to share your screen. So we also have the slides you shared with us last night, so we can just go through those.
Yeah, I'll just, there's
Okay.
only a few slides. So if you guys keep the share, that's easier.
Which option?
So we'll just go through. So once you introduce Ingram, I'll come back up and then go through the slides. So. And bear with me for just 1 second. So. I can be sure I have control of everything. All right, we should be good to go. So.
Okay, hello, everyone. Already said hello. Hello.
So this is awkward because I'll just the slides on my screen. So this is just to remind you of the process for artwork development, procurement, everything. So the first stage is procurement, and then you guys have seen this project twice before. Because after procurement, the artist gathers research, engages the public. We have a Meet the Artist event. And then that happens a little bit later. And the artist created a idea. And then after that, a proposal, kind of that's shaped by the Meet the Artist event. And after that, we have another event, which is, we call it an artist open house event. So we had that in San Ysidro. It was very well attended. It was a really exciting event. The public received it very well. Everyone is enthusiastic about the project. And we did get some pointed feedback that they really wanted in a part that wasn't in the schematic design. So you'll see today the artist took that feedback and really developed that and incorporated that into the final proposal. So after that event, artist creates the final design, and that's what we're looking at today. So the stage we're at as city approves the final design. So that's what we're kind of gearing towards for the executive director eventually to approve the final proposal. So it's not really like we've gotten all the feedback, we just want your approval. Okay, next one.
Yeah, so
Oh,
figuring things out. Okay. Here we go.
did you just press the arrow?
Yeah, well, I had to click on the presentation first. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so this is a chart with your role. So we're at the orange circle, so make recommendations on the artist final artwork proposals. Again, eventually, so Jonathan, our executive director, can approve it with your permission. Not really permission, but you. Okay. Yay. Okay, so now I'm going to let Ingram over, who is part of the collaborative with Marisol Rendon. He is going to present the final proposal today and updates that I mentioned and just talk about, the community engagement aspect again. So with that, Ingram, thank you so much for joining. Take it away.
All right. Can everybody hear me all right? Hopefully. All right. And I guess, Chuck, whenever you're ready, we can go to that first public comment slide.
Ingram, you should be able to start. Could you,
Yeah. Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you. Great.
Okay. So if you just want to go to that first public comment slide on your share screen, we don't have to change back and forth. Yeah. All right. Okay. So thank you guys for meeting with me. It's kind of nice to see everybody in one room. And at school, our biggest trick is dealing with high flex modalities as well, mixing virtual and face-to-face meetings. So I realize it can be tricky. As Laura mentioned, we had a great community open house event. It was after the holidays and mixed with like a big sort of toy drive fundraiser community arts event. So it was a really energetic meeting. And so and in that everyone has sort of been introduced to the project a few times now. I thought we'd focus on really just what has changed since the schematic design stage. And really one of the largest changes as opposed to just refinement has come from this community arts meeting, where really over and over again, we heard from the community for their desire to have a water feature in the park. And they don't have one. They don't have a water play area anywhere else in the park. And so when they heard that there was going to be Mr. Heads and Fogger Heads as part of our work, the biggest question was whether that was something that kids could play in, that could be part of our proposal, part of our design as well. And initially, we were trying to indicate that the mist within the piece would sort of be carried by the wind and would create this kind of microclimate that would be interacted with that way. And eventually, what we realized was that that wasn't enough. And so we started to look into what it would take to have some of our Fogger / Mr. Heads pointing outwards at the base of the sculpture. And so that there would be this sort of water play element in it. It is a dry water play element. And so, you know, there's not drainage and things like that. It's not like one of those jumping fountain sort of things. And so that's been pretty much the biggest change to the design so far. And I guess in design team meetings, there had also been questions and concerns about coating and surfaces and material concerns. And so as we continued to do material cost breakdowns, we've come to the point where we have a possibility for a change in material as well. So I guess from that, I guess we can go to our second slide. And so there's been questions about the proposed scale of the structure. And at this point, we are set at the 25 foot height. There's also been comment that we've received a few times about the size of the plinth, which we have now settled at a lower 4 foot plinth height. There's also been some comment and thoughts about access, which is sort of shown in this bird's eye view here as far as the path that we're going to be adding. And I guess let's go to the rendering so we can kind of see what these changes end up looking like. So I mentioned the material change in the project. It has at this point, this is all still just depending a little bit on engineering and very specific structural call outs for the material that we'll be using. However, it looks as though at this point, we are going to be able to change the structure material back to a stainless square tubing material. In the past, we've discussed it as a hot dipped galvanized process, which was very much a budgetary concern, especially the stainless steel prices on that tend to be a little volatile at this scale. And so, but as it started to develop and as we started to realize that there might be additional coating necessary to the galvanized structure, that additional coating cost started to come very near to the cost, current cost anyway, of working with stainless steel originally. And so although it's not an even sort of swap, it is a slight budget increase, not a slight, a substantial budget increase. It is closer with our original vision for the work, and so it's made that a viable choice anyway. And so shown here in the rendering, a couple of considerations that came in working with the idea of having some of the mist directed out intentionally, right, gives that opportunity for children to kind of play, interact with that fog very directly. Basically what we've added is a slightly larger skirt, concrete skirt walkway around it. We're looking at a 5 foot wide concrete path around, whereas at one point in time in the renderings, there was a walkway for an approach and not necessarily to walk all the way around the piece. We were looking at doing some native plantings around it, and we're now looking at pushing that back. So there is this kind of this mitigated, clear, clean area of interaction. And so, let's see, I guess, let's see, I guess, I forgot, do we have one more slide? Sorry. Yeah, so this gets back to the stainless steel. Now at this point in the presentation, we are talking about stainless steel round tubing. I just wanted to let the committee know that in our, right now, in our initial construction sort of drawing, planning and discussions with fabricators, with our fabricator and with an engineer, it does look like we may be shifting to a square tubing. It's going to be easier, cleaner for transportation and for the inclusion of our fogger heads. So we are probably looking at one more shift, actually, even from this image, but that's something that is really going to kind of come to play in the engineering stage of things. Ideally, aesthetically, the round tubing is what we're interested in, but there, again, as construction documents are being produced and we talk to engineers, there may be a shift to square tubing in this case, but we are committed to the stainless steel at this stage in the project. Yeah, I guess I guess there. I could open it up to other questions. Those are kind of the major shifts and adjustments. I could take questions. Yeah, we're starting to zero in on some of what the fogger head equipment looks like, and one of the major concerns with that, of course, is maintenance, and we're starting to come up with some really viable solutions for that as well. And so, yeah, we're really feeling positive about the way all of the different components of this project are going. And yeah, I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Ingram. So, I guess, so it looks like we do have some questions, but basically I'll let you, we'll have folks ask questions, and then I will signal to you when we're ready for you to respond. So, okay, so I am muting now, and I guess you unmute the, yeah.
So you're unmuted now?
Okay, so we're ready for committee questions.
Well, I just think it's beautiful. I love the shape. I love the adding of the water. I love the height of it. And I see it as a beautiful wedding scene. So I'm excited about that. And my question is about the guest of honor, the tree. So what type of tree is it going to be? And are we going to have the opportunity to simply watch it grow above and beyond the art piece? And once it, I see it in the picture very small. So are we, what type of tree is it? And how is that mist going to affect the tree and all that kind of stuff?
Ingram, are you able to hear that?
Yes. So at this point, and where we have been working so far in discussion with arborists and the design team, it seems that we are fairly well settled on it's a Catalina ironwood. It's a species of tree that's part of the city's kind of planting like scheme. So it's like kind of an approved tree. It's one that people are familiar with doing maintenance on. We were very interested at the beginning in using the desert version of the ironwood tree. It's just a subspecies. That one is it's a native tree to that area. And it's also an endangered species in the area. However, we've shifted to the Catalina subspecies at this point just because of the addition of moisture. It's just a little bit more hardy for that coastal environment as opposed to the desert environment, which of course it lives in a more desert kind of setting, but we're adding moisture to that microclimate. So in these images, in the renderings, it shows a very small tree, basically because that's what we will have to plant. specifically for the survivability of the tree. So the younger a tree you plant, sort of the better survivability chances you give it. The older you try to transplant it, the more chance you have of that transplant not taking. And so right now we're trying to balance between, having something that's like sort of like visually, striking at the grand opening of the work, but also giving it the best survivability. And then it will be growing into the structure. There will be recommendations made in the maintenance plan for doing some, at least early on, doing some shaping and some pruning to help that tree have a slightly more elevated canopy as opposed to kind of a rounder shape. And so at that point, it should be growing up into the structure, and we will happily watch it grow to and through that structure when it happens. Theoretically, this structure is more or less equivalent to the size, shape, scale of the adult version of that tree, but of course, that can change, right? It's hard to predict how a tree is going to grow, especially when you're adding water, which of course increases its growth, but then it's also in this contained vessel, more or less, even though it is open to the ground underneath, which can contain the root structure, which can keep the tree smaller. So it's really hard to predict at this point, but the idea is that it will eventually fill the structure.
Okay, so yeah, so I'll mute, and Bill, if you could unmute, and we can have an additional question whenever you're ready, Commissioner Friedman.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the project, but I'm concerned when you said that the tubing may have to be changed from circular to square. Does that in any way affect the overall aesthetic of the piece? We're now looking at a bunch of square, steel tubes, as opposed to the circular. I mean, it becomes very different, very angular.
So I can respond. Let me know when I should. Okay. So I would say that as artists, we're actually comfortable with either. The structure itself is actually, it's an angular structure. It's based on paper folding. It presents itself as sort of a cut crystal or folded paper kind of, creased form. So in some ways, for us, having some of those harder, sharper edges actually will crisp that look up a little bit, which we actually appreciate, especially in that everything else around it is organic. The plinth below is going to be very sharp, cut sort of edges to that. So it actually goes with it a little bit better. Initially, our ideas of the round tubing were in that it appeared that it might be more straightforward fabrication wise because of the different kind of compound, ever-changing angles that the tubing is going into. But in actual further communication with our fabricators, it's looking like for them setting up those jigs and getting that done is going to be, it's going to be a cleaner process, especially with stainless. Part of it has to do with the welding and the way that stainless doesn't like to flow into inverted welds and all that. So anyway, there's kind of a lot to it that it looks like it's actually going to be cleaner and more straightforward fabrication for the square tubing. But for us, actually having those kind of edges and sides is Not, we don't see it as problematic, actually. It kind of ties back to the original impetus for it as well.
Are there any other? So are there,
More questions?
Two questions.
oh yeah, sorry.
Two questions. Yeah, I have two questions. Okay, I have two questions. Well, first, it's a beautiful sculpture. I love the contrast between the steel and the clear glass and the angles. My questions are in terms of the stainless steel. You mentioned the coating. Is that going to keep it cool to the touch? Because I've seen kids climbing up onto the plinth and touching the steel, and I had flashbacks when I was little. We could go onto, slides because they were made of metal and they would get really hot. That's one question. And the other is access to the tree. If the tree starts to develop any like disease or rot, how will maintenance crews be able to access?
So those are great questions. So with the stainless steel, that actually eliminates our need for a coating, which is actually really helpful as far as keeping it cool to the touch. For years, we've actually, I used to participate in a show called High Desert Test Sites out in Joshua Tree, and made high polished aluminum and stainless kind of sculpture out there that was meant to be interacted with in the middle of the desert, sort of in the summer. And what we really determined actually from doing that, and what I've experienced in the past, is that having a reflective surface, having a painted or a coated surface, when it has any sort of color or pigmentation to it, actually absorbs the heat from the sun into the material. And a higher polished surface reflects a lot of that energy back out. And so although it doesn't keep it completely cool, it certainly helps, as opposed to like a powder coated or a painted surface, which actually get kind of significantly hotter. It is still a metallic surface. It's that metallic surface with the plinth still starts at about 4 feet above the ground. So the plinth goes up to that point. So very young children, I think, that are more sensitive to it, they'd need parents' help probably to reach that part of the structure. Also, the structural elements where they meet the plinth are very, very close to vertical. The ones that do come in at an angle come at a near vertical angle. So the first, I would say 6 to 8 to 10 feet of the structure itself doesn't present itself readily for climbing. Of course, if you were committed to, I guess you could, but that's kind of where that is. And then also, of course, during the summer and during the hottest months, it'll be on a little bit, it'll be on this sort of timed cycle where it is getting enveloped with a fog, with a mist, that does create a localized cooling for not only the structure, but the airspace around it.
Are there any other questions? Oh, yes. Ready.
A couple of questions about the tree, more specifically the species and the horticultural aspects of the mist applied to the tree. I understand that the tree requires very little moisture, so I'm concerned about the mist for that specific tree. Maybe not in this season, but in the middle of the summer, we can get really hot. And I think it's well known by people who grow native trees that water and native trees in the summer is a recipe for fungal diseases and other problems with the tree. Has this been considered? Is there going to be like a seasonal misting? Is the tree going to behave well? Because the park is gonna be very dry. It's a very dry environment. It's gonna be very hot during the summer. So is this something that has been considered, consulted with horticulturalists or arborists? Is it gonna be safe? And the second question is, the consumption of water. Is there some information about that, especially again, in very hot days in the summer? Is this, because native species are supposed to be perfect for our weather, for the amount of rain that we get. So we start to give more water, especially moisture to the leaves. How the tree is gonna react to that?
So, yeah, we can start to address some of those things. I just realized that I didn't get to the second part of your other question, which was access to the tree, which relates to this. If the tree does develop a problem or an issue, there will be a panel within the structure. Most of the structure has to be delivered to site in 4 sections. And so those sections will be bolted together on site. And then within that, there will also be a smaller access panel that is built into the structure that can be removed to work on the tree when it's younger. And then, hopefully once it's established, some of these questions have all answered themselves, but if necessary, large quarter size portions of that structure could, if necessary, be unbolted to do, major tree work if necessary. We hope that it doesn't come to that, but of course things can happen. I guess we have been talking both through the design team and meeting with some folks up at the Botanical Garden up in Carlsbad. That was part of the early shift to this Catalina ironwood as opposed to the desert ironwood, is that it ranges, it is a drought tolerant tree. And so it does range down to the Coronado Islands and whatnot. It will survive in sort of our lower latitudes, but it also ranges much further north, and it's a coastal species. So it deals with that sort of ambient moisture that comes in off of the ocean better than the desert version of that tree. The other thing is that, and this all ties into the water consumption. What we are looking at this point is a system that appears to have about a 5 gallon per minute sort of flow rate maximum, more like probably 3 gallons per minute flow rate. And the aerosol nature of the fogger heads is that it's not a wetting sort of mist. It's obviously putting moisture into the system and into the environment, but it's not. If it in the middle of winter on a moist, wet day in the rain, it could be it could and possibly will condense on the structure because it's cooler. It's cold metal. But in those summer months, you're dealing with something that's really like an evaporative fog. So most all of that moisture is carried up and out and sort of evacuated very quickly by sun and wind. And actually right now we're making a shift from what the Cool Fog company that is designing it for us, a shift from what they refer to as their fogger heads to what they refer to as their mister heads, which does have a slightly larger particle to the aerosol, but it has a much longer life as far as maintenance. It requires a lot less maintenance to the individual heads. It also has a much lower flow rate than the fogger head does, which is a little counterintuitive. That's not the way I thought that it would be, but it's getting us closer to that 3 gallon per minute kind of flow rate. And so with that, there will be some adjustments when the work goes in, but we imagine that each time the system goes off, it should go off for something that is a time period of a minute or under. At this point, we're looking at probably something like an hourly cycle for that during the day. And so, you know, we're looking at using far less water than the comfort station that's right next to it, and, you know, really using far less water for our visual portion of the work than what the actual park is irrigating with, right? So we also will be tied into the irrigation system for the trees that are going into the park as well. And that's going to be separate from our system. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to think about the different seasons, because the weather, the conditions, and the requirements of the trees are different for every season. And I think some consideration should be made about doing this mist and the park system in months, and maybe, you know, thinking about that twice and doing some kind of planning, just about killing the tree in the hot summer.
I'll also add, and Laura reminded me of this, the whole of the process of selecting the species and figuring out the mist and potential and whatever potential ramifications there might be. It's all being done in close collaboration with the city's arborist as well. So we do have city staff that are experts in this arena as well that we're working closely with. So.
Yeah. The other thing, just to address, that's certainly something we've
So
talked
maybe
about
I'll
as well.
just, one quick thing, because we are technically past time and we still need to take action on this. So I'll just, yeah, so just with that in mind, Keith, did you have a question?
Just two real quick comments.
Yeah.
First, thank you both for your pliability, and this has been an amazing experience working closely with you. I love the addition of the pathway rather than I believe it was decomposed granite previously, and that really does put a focus on the sculpture and really doing it from a 360-degree angle. I didn't see any light. We had talked about possibly light features, and I didn't see that in the rendering.
Yeah, sorry, for this presentation, we didn't include our nighttime rendering. I should have. I guess within the final proposal packet, there are renderings for the work at night, and we are looking at having 4 to 6 LED uplight pieces in the top of the plinth lighting up into the work. And I would just say that we have been looking at doing seasonal variability with the misting and all of that. Part of the mist, we want it to tie to the volume of the structure and the amount of carbon uptake that's happening from a tree. It's a process of sort of visualizing the science behind that, and we'll be talking about that in the didactics for the work that are around the plinth. So we are wanting to keep the cycle relating to that to some degree. But yes, absolutely looking at doing some seasonal adjustment. The concern that's come to us from the City Park Service is that this is phase 1 for this project. There will be multiple phases of construction around the tree, including a comfort station, which is part of phase 2. And so from Parks and Rec, they have really wanted sort of a kind of a plug and play, almost mechanical, really robust timing system for it, as opposed to one that exists off of date and time, and that would have the danger of being reset if there was a interruption in power and that sort of thing. Because what they've said is that sometimes, you know, there could be a sprinkler head broken and creating a geyser in a park, and they wouldn't know for 2 weeks at some points. And so they really want something. They tend to err on the side of being robust and repeatable as opposed to like subtly adjustable. And so that's part of our discussion as well. We're trying to find the happy medium there.
Well, number one, thank you, Ingram, and of course, Marisol, I'm sorry she wasn't able to join us for the presentation. I will now request any public comment for this agenda item. Chuck, would you please read any public comment that was submitted in writing and call on any attendees that would like to provide comment?
Thank you, Commissioner Ofsted. No comments submitted in writing, no attendees present.
Thank you. What we'd like now to do is make a motion to recommend the commission that the executive director accept the final artwork proposal in fulfillment of the city's collecting mission and scope. If you would, please type speak on the chat window and verbally state your name and make your motion. I'm skip that. And now we are in person. That's two, Chuck. Let me try that again. Would anybody like to make a motion that we, that we make a commission, make a motion to recommend to the commission that the executive director accept the final artwork. Would anybody like to make a motion? Dr. Rogers.
I'll make the motion.
Duly noted. We like, wait a second. Thank you so very much. Is there any discussion? We have a first and we have a second. Is there any additional discussion?
It's beautiful and I'm excited to see it. That's my comment.
Any other comments? So now we'll have to take a vote. I'll call on your name and you'll respond out loud with a yay, nay, or abstain. Commissioner Friedman.
Yay.
Wayne Holt. Yay. Francisco Emmett.
Yay.
Commissioner Roberts.
Yay.
Dr. Rogers. And my vote is a yay. And once again, can I do it another enthusiastic yay? All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, it is. So, and we had to jump around a little bit, but I believe this takes us pretty much to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff, for all your hard work. Thank you, everybody, for being here in person. What a wonderful experience.
One more comment.
Oh, yes, just one quick one.
What's the time frame on this installation?
Oof, that's a good question. I think, yeah, so I would have to do probably a couple of years is the best I can give you off the top of my head. I don't know if Laura can do anything more detailed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know that the process with our city projects moving at the speed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hopefully before the cost of stainless steel goes up. Right. There we go. So thank you, committee members. Our next meeting is planned for Friday, April 14th, and we're officially adjourning the meeting at 9:45. Thank you, everybody.